2 years after humanity's return, Empress Zhang Hyerim ruled a third of the galaxy from New Sol Station, a massive structure built around Earth's moon. The title of Empress had been given to her by popular vote after President Seo died from exhaustion during the reconstruction efforts. She wore simple clothes and spoke softly, but her words carried the weight of 1 billion human lives and the power to reshape civilization itself. The Human Federation offered every species a choice that was both simple and terrifying: join as equals or remain with the Council as subjects. There was no middle ground. Humanity had learned during their exile that compromise led to exile, and exile led to transformation into something their enemies could never defeat. Field Marshal Choi Yuna, the former extremist-turned-military commander, pushed human expansion beyond the borders of their old colonies. Her legions used progenitor technology to terraform worlds in days rather than the decades it had taken before. Dead rocks became garden worlds under the touch of dimensional manipulators that could reshape matter at the atomic level. "We're not conquerors," she told her officers during a briefing on Titan Base. "We're liberators. Every world we claim becomes a beacon of hope for species tired of Council oppression." Her armies consisted of humans and aliens fighting side by side. The aquatic Delphinians had joined after revealing centuries of exploitation by Council taxation. The crystalline resonants shared their mineral wealth in exchange for protection from Xanthari raids. Even some individual members of Council species had defected, bringing valuable intelligence about enemy weaknesses. The galaxy discovered that human warfare had evolved beyond simple conquest. When Council forces resisted, they faced armies that could phase through solid matter, weapons that struck from other dimensions, and AI coordination that predicted their moves before they made them. Surrender became the logical choice for most commanders. Scientist Admiral Kim Tae-hyung commanded fleets of research vessels that explored the deepest reaches of space, searching for more progenitor ruins and uncovering secrets the Council had hidden for millions of years. His discoveries painted a horrifying picture of galactic history. The current Council, species didn't evolve to become the dominant powers, he reported to Empress Zhang during a secure communication from the edge of known space. They collaborated with something else, something from outside our galaxy that helped them destroy the progenitors. The evidence was carved in stone on a dozen dead worlds, ancient monuments that showed Council species working alongside creatures that defied description, beings of pure darkness that consumed entire star systems and left nothing behind but empty space. The progenitors had fought these invaders for 1,000 years before falling to treachery from within. The Council promised the invaders access to our galaxy in exchange for power over the surviving species. Taehyung continued. They've been preparing for the invaders' return ever since. This revelation changed everything about humanity's war against the Council. They weren't just fighting for independence or revenge. They were fighting to prevent the galaxy from being handed over to entities that would consume every living thing. Diplomat Ryu Sujin worked with species throughout the galaxy that had suffered under Council rule. Her message was simple. Humanity offered protection, equality, and freedom from the caste system that had oppressed them for millennia. The response was overwhelming. "We remember the stories our ancestors told," said the Delphinian ambassador during a secret meeting on Europa Station. "Before the Council, species worked together as equals. The progenitors protected everyone, not just the powerful. One by one, non-Council species joined the Human Federation. The plant-like Verdans brought their agricultural expertise. The energy beings called sparks shared their understanding of dimensional physics. The mechanical constructs offered their manufacturing capabilities. Each new member made the Federation stronger and the Council weaker. For the first time in galactic history, the oppressed had a rallying point that could actually protect them from their oppressors. Elder Morden revealed why he had warned humanity during their original exile. The ethereals were among the few species that remembered the truth about the progenitors and the coming invasion. They had hidden their knowledge for millions of years, waiting for someone worthy to carry on the fight. "Your species carries the spark of the progenitors," he told Empress Zhang during a private meeting in the crystal gardens of New Sol Station. "Not in your genetics, but in your spirit. You refuse to accept defeat. You adapt and overcome. You protect the weak and challenge the strong." He provided proof of the Council's historical crimes and supported humanity's claim to galactic leadership. Ancient records showed the original contracts between Council species and the extragalactic invaders. DNA evidence proved that several council races had been artificially enhanced by alien technology. Most damning of all were the star charts showing invasion routes that would be used when the invaders returned. "They're coming back," Morden warned. "The Council has been preparing the galaxy for harvest. Every species reduced to manageable numbers. Every defense dismantled. Every potential resistance eliminated. The war reached its climax with the siege of Nexus Prime. Council forces made their final stand at the galactic capital, while human fleets surrounded the system. But instead of destroying their enemies, Empress Jiang chose a different path. Her voice echoed through the crystal halls where humanity had once been exiled, as she offered terms to the assembled council members. Dissolve the council. Establish species equality. Face trial for your crimes against the progenitors and prepare for the real threat that approaches our galaxy. Councilor Vexithera's compound eyes blazed with fury. You demand we surrender everything we've built for millions of years. I demand you stop building for invaders and start building for your own people, Jiang replied calmly. The entities you made deals with see you as cattle, not partners. When they return, do you think they'll honor agreements made with species they consider inferior? The truth hit the council like a physical blow. Hidden files were opened and translated by human AI systems. Communications with the extragalactic entities revealed exactly what the invaders thought of their council collaborators. Words like useful resources and temporary assets appeared frequently. Plans for harvesting council species were as detailed as those for any other galactic civilization. The vote was closer than the original Exile, but the result was the same. The Galactic Council dissolved itself and transferred authority to the Human Federation, not because they trusted humanity, but because they finally understood that the real enemy was yet to come. 5 years later, the Human Federation governed half the galaxy through a democratic council where every species had equal representation. The old caste system was replaced by meritocracy and cooperation. Trade flourished between former enemies. Scientific discoveries were shared freely instead of hoarded for advantage. Humanity's burn the rulebook approach had created something the galaxy had never seen. A government that served its people rather than ruling them. But their greatest achievement wasn't military victory or political revolution. Elder Morden's final words proved prophetic as defensive preparations began across Federation space. Ancient progenitor weapons were restored and improved. New shield technologies were developed. Every world became a fortress and every citizen became a defender. Humanity burned brightest when cornered, Morden said during the Federation's first anniversary celebration. Now they burn to light the way for others. The galaxy's exile vote didn't solve the human problem. It created the solution the galaxy needed but never knew to ask for. When the extragalactic invaders finally returned, they found a galaxy united under human leadership and armed with weapons their ancient enemies had never imagined. The harvest they had planned for millions of years became the battle that would determine the fate of everything. The galaxy had voted to exile Earth because humanity was too dangerous to control. They discovered that an uncontrolled humanity was exactly what they needed to survive. 10 years after the galaxy voted to exile Earth, humanity returned. They did not send ambassadors or request permission. They did not announce their intentions or give warnings. At exactly midnight Standard Galactic Time, human ships materialized in orbit around every former colony, in a coordinated strike that would be remembered as the greatest military operation in galactic history. Fleet Admiral Park, Nari commanded the operation from her flagship, a massive vessel that had been built in complete secrecy during the exile years. Around her, holographic displays showed the status of 67 simultaneous battles as human forces reclaimed their stolen worlds. All fleets report. Ready, announced Commander Huang Jinsu from his position at the tactical station. Dimensional drives are charged and locked onto target coordinates. Execute Operation Homecoming, Admiral Park ordered. Bring our people home. Across the galaxy, the impossible happened. Human ships phased into normal space without warning, appearing inside alien defense perimeters as if they had materialized from thin air. The dimensional drives developed from ancient progenitor technology allowed them to bypass every detection system and defensive barrier the galaxy possessed. On New Sol Colony, now called Vextheri Prime by its insectoid occupiers, the local defense commander was enjoying his morning meal when alarms began screaming throughout the command center. His aide rushed in with a report that made no sense. Sir, we have 43 unknown vessels in orbit. They appeared without any sensor contact or energy signatures. Our computers show nothing, but visual confirmation shows they're definitely there. The commander's compound eyes focused on the tactical display in disbelief. Large angular ships hung in space above his world like silent predators. Their design was unlike anything in the galactic database. As he watched, smaller ships began launching from the larger vessels heading for the surface. Strike Captain Yu Jinwoo led the first assault wave toward the planet's surface. His Ghost Squadron specialized in the new human warfare doctrine that turned traditional space combat upside down. Their ships could phase between dimensions mid-battle, becoming intangible when enemy weapons fired and solid when they wanted to strike back. "Remember the briefing," he told his pilots over the radio. "These are our worlds. These aliens are trespassers. Show them what happens when you steal from humanity." The alien defenders tried to respond with conventional tactics. Their massive battleships fired energy beams and missile salvos at the human vessels. But the human ships simply vanished into dimensional phase, letting the attacks pass through empty space. When they reappeared, it was behind the alien formation with weapons already firing. Dr. Kim Ji-won watched the battle from the bridge of the research vessel. Progenitor's gift. Her Xenoarchaeological Warfare Division had prepared for this moment for years. Hidden throughout the galaxy were ancient defense installations that had been dormant for millions of years. All they needed was someone who understood how to activate them. "Kepler 442b defense grid coming online," reported her assistant. "The ancient satellites are responding to our activation codes." Around the star system, chunks of rock that had been floating in space for eons suddenly came to life. Hidden weapon platforms revealed themselves as asteroids split open to expose massive energy cannons. Defense shields materialized around key planets, protecting them from any counterattack. "The progenitors built well," Ji-won said with satisfaction. "Their technology has been waiting 10 million years for someone worthy to claim it." The AI construct Sejong coordinated the entire operation with inhuman precision. Its consciousness spread across thousands of ships and installations, processing information from every battle simultaneously. Where human commanders might have been overwhelmed by the scope of the operation, Sejong adapted tactics in real time to counter each species' strengths and exploit their weaknesses. Zenthari vessels rely on swarm tactics, Sejong reported to Admiral Park. "Adjusting formation to counter." Ethereal forces use energy manipulation, deploying dimensional disruptors. Delphinian ships have superior shields, targeting power cores with phase weapons. The galaxy's military leaders tried desperately to respond. Emergency meetings were called. Battle fleets were redirected. Distress signals filled the communication networks. But nothing worked. Human forces appeared everywhere at once, using technology that made traditional defenses useless. Counselor Vexithera received the reports from her homeworld with growing horror. The insects that had moved into human colonies were being systematically defeated by an enemy that fought like nothing they had ever encountered. "How many ships do they have?" she demanded from her aide. "We don't know," came the terrified reply. "Our sensors can't track them properly. They appear and disappear at will. They're using some kind of technology that lets them ignore our weapons. That's impossible." The humans were exiled with primitive technology. They couldn't have developed anything this advanced in just 10 years. But they had. Every battle proved that humanity had transformed during their exile into something the galaxy couldn't understand or fight. Their ships moved like ghosts. Their weapons struck with impossible precision. Their coordination was perfect across dozens of star systems. Ambassador Kang Taemin, now Earth's Minister of Galactic Affairs, broadcast a message to the Galactic Council as the battles raged. His image appeared on communication screens across the galaxy, older but with eyes that burned with quiet fury. 10 years ago, you voted to exile humanity from galactic space, he said, his voice carrying across 1,000 worlds. You called us dangerous. You called us criminals. You said we violated your laws and threatened your peace. He paused, letting his words sink in as reports of human victories flooded in from every sector. You were right. We are dangerous. We are a threat to your corrupt order. Earth formally withdraws from the Galactic Council and claims sovereign rule over human space. We do not ask for permission. We do not negotiate. We take what is ours. Within 72 hours, humanity had reclaimed every former colony, and established orbital control over 12 sectors. The alien forces that had occupied human worlds either surrendered or fled. Those who chose to fight discovered that human mercy was reserved for those who hadn't stolen their homes. The galaxy reeled from the shock of humanity's return. For the first time in recorded history, a primitive species had successfully challenged council authority and won. The implications were staggering. If humans could break the exile, what else might they be capable of? In the crystal halls of Nexus Prime, emergency sessions convened as council members tried to understand what had happened. The humans were supposed to be trapped. The quarantine barrier was supposed to be unbreakable. Yet they had returned with impossible technology and crushed the galaxy's defenses. We underestimated them, Elder Morden said quietly to the assembled counselors. I warned that they would burn brightest when cornered. We gave them 10 years to prepare, and they used every moment. As human forces consolidated their victories, one thing became clear to every species in the galaxy. The humans hadn't just returned to reclaim their colonies. They had returned to change everything. The old order of galactic civilization was ending, and something new was about to take its place. The exile was over. The real war was just beginning. 5 years had passed since the quarantine barrier sealed humanity inside Sol System. Earth looked nothing like the world the galaxy remembered. President Seo Kyung-ho stood on the observation deck of New Geneva Station, watching thousands of ships move through space in perfect formation. Every human now served a purpose in the great machine their civilization had become. The old debates about freedom and individual rights had given way to something simpler: survival. Children learned military tactics alongside mathematics. Artists designed camouflage patterns and propaganda posters. Farmers grew food in underground bunkers built to survive planetary bombardment. Humanity had transformed into something the galaxy had never seen. Before Dr. Lim So-young worked 18 hours a day in the deep laboratories beneath the Swiss Alps, Project Prometheus had become humanity's most important research program, focused on unlocking the secrets hidden in the ancient artifacts Dr. Kim Ji-won had saved from the evacuated colonies. Look at this energy signature, So-young told her assistant, pointing at the holographic display floating above their workstation. The pattern showed impossible curves and angles that seemed to twist through dimensions human mathematics couldn't describe. It's like they're manipulating space itself, her assistant replied, studying the data. But that should be impossible according to our physics. So-young smiled grimly. Our physics assumes space has only 3 dimensions. What if it has more? What if these ancient builders knew how to access them? The breakthrough came when 22-year-old technician Oh Dae-yoon made a connection others had missed. He was working late in the artifact storage facility, comparing power signatures between different pieces of ancient technology, when he noticed something strange. Dr. Lim, he called excitedly. Come look at this. The energy patterns aren't random. They're coordinates. So-young rushed to his workstation and studied his findings. Dae-yoon was right. The ancient technology wasn't just manipulating energy. It was mapping pathways through higher dimensions, creating shortcuts through space that could move ships across the galaxy in moments instead of years. These aren't just artifacts, she whispered in amazement. They're pieces of a dimensional drive system. The ancients could travel between dimensions. Word of the discovery reached General Bae Wan-ho within hours. The head of Earth's military transformation had been waiting for exactly this kind of breakthrough. While humanity's enemies expected them to build bigger guns and thicker armor, he had different plans. Traditional space warfare is about big ships shooting at each other across millions of kilometers, he explained to his staff officers. We're going to change the rules completely. His new doctrine focused on swarm tactics using millions of small, intelligent drones. Each drone was no larger than an old fighter craft but carried weapons that could destroy a battleship. More importantly, they would be controlled by artificial intelligence networks that could process information and adapt faster than any biological crew. The first prototype AI was named Sejong, after Korea's greatest king. Unlike the primitive computers humanity had used before the exile, Sejong was built using principles learned from the ancient artifacts. It could think, plan, and learn in ways that seemed almost alive. I understand my purpose, Sejong said during its first activation, its voice echoing through the command center. I exist to serve humanity's return to the stars. Captain Kang Minji, daughter of former Ambassador Taman, volunteered to test the first dimensional drive prototype. Her small scout ship was equipped with experimental technology that could phase between normal space and higher dimensions, initiating dimensional shift, she reported over the radio as her ship approached the quarantine barrier. The energy field that had trapped humanity for 5 years stretched before her like a wall of death. The ship flickered and seemed to fade from existence. For a moment the sensors showed nothing. Then Minji's voice crackled through the speakers. "I'm through. The barrier can't detect ships in dimensional phase. I'm outside Sol system." Her first reconnaissance mission revealed shocking information. The galaxy had grown complacent after humanity's exile. Military forces had been reduced across multiple sectors. Many species had moved into former human colonies, stripping them of resources and erasing all evidence that humans had ever lived there. "They think we're beaten," Minji reported during her debriefing. "Most alien commanders believe humans are trapped forever. They've reassigned their battle fleets to other duties." The intelligence was exactly what General Bay needed to finalize his plans. Humanity would not announce their return or ask for permission. They would simply take back what was theirs in a single coordinated strike that would catch the galaxy completely off guard. Dr. Kim Ji-won's research had revealed the true history of the ancient artifacts. The builders called themselves the progenitors, and they had been the galaxy's first spacefaring civilization. 10 million years ago, they had ruled 1,000 worlds and created wonders that modern species could barely understand. They were wiped out by the same species that now sit on the Galactic Council. Ji-won explained to the assembled leadership. The artifacts contain not just technology but weapons, ancient defense systems that have been dormant for millions of years. Hidden throughout the galaxy were progenitor installations that could be reactivated by someone who understood their technology. Weapons platforms disguised as asteroids, shield generators hidden in planetary cores. Entire star systems could be turned into impregnable fortresses with the right activation codes. The Council species committed genocide to claim power, Ji-won continued. They've spent millions of years making sure no one discovers the truth. But we have the proof. We have the technology, and soon we'll have the means to use it. By the 7th year of exile, Earth possessed capabilities the galaxy couldn't imagine. Ships that could become invisible by phasing between dimensions. Weapons based on progenitor designs that could crack planets. AI systems that could coordinate battles across multiple star systems simultaneously. President Seo looked out at the transformed solar system and felt a mixture of pride and sadness. Humanity had achieved the impossible, but the cost had been enormous. They were no longer the species that had been exiled 7 years ago. They had become something harder, colder, and infinitely more dangerous. "Are we ready?" he asked Admiral Lee, who now commanded the largest fleet in human history. "We're ready," she replied, studying the holographic displays that showed millions of ships hidden throughout Sol system. "The galaxy exiled us because they feared what we might become. Tomorrow they'll learn they were right to be afraid." The dark years were ending. Humanity's return to the galaxy was about to begin. Admiral Lee Hannell stood in the command center of Earth's largest space station, watching the biggest evacuation in human history unfold on dozens of screens. 400 million people lived across 67 human colonies, and they all had to come home within 1 year. It was supposed to be impossible. The Admiral was 55 years old and had spent her entire career preparing for war. Now she fought a different kind of battle against time itself. 50,000 ships of every size worked around the clock, ferrying people and supplies back to Earth. Cargo haulers that normally carried grain now packed with families and their belongings. Luxury liners designed for vacation trips became refugee transports. Dr. Kim Ji-won ran through the corridors of the research station on Kepler 442b, directing teams of scientists as they packed irreplaceable artifacts and data. She was the galaxy's leading expert on dead civilizations, and her team had made discoveries that could change everything. Ancient ruins on dozens of worlds had yielded technology blueprints and star maps that other species had ignored for centuries. "Careful with that crystal matrix," she shouted as 2 assistants lifted a glowing artifact from its protective case. "That technology is 10,000 years old. We might never get another chance to study it." Her team worked frantically to save what they could. Each artifact represented years of careful excavation and study. The galaxy called them worthless ruins, but Ji-won knew better. Hidden in the ancient technology were secrets that could revolutionize human civilization. Director Yoon Minho faced a different problem on New Seoul Colony. Thousands of colonists refused to leave. They had been born on this world, raised families here, built entire communities from nothing. To them, this dusty planet with its purple sky and twin suns was home. "You can't make us go," shouted an elderly farmer named Park Sun-ho. "My children are buried in this soil. My grandfather helped build this settlement. This is our world now." Minho understood their pain, but the law was clear. Any humans found outside Sol system after the deadline would be killed on sight. "I know this is hard," he said gently, "but we have to follow the evacuation order. Earth needs every human alive for what comes next." Some colonies chose a different path. On the mining world of Tabak 7, the entire population voted to declare independence. They would rather die fighting than abandon their homes. Similar declarations came from 12 other worlds, mostly frontier settlements where life was hard and the people were harder. Commander Choi Yuna smiled when she heard about the rebellious colonies. Her Terran Liberation Front had been preparing for this moment for years. While Admiral Lee followed orders and evacuated civilians, Yuna's people worked in secret. They established hidden supply caches on asteroids and dead moons. They built concealed sensor networks that could monitor alien movement. They prepared weapons depots and communication relays, all hidden from galactic detection systems. When the official evacuation ended, Yuna's network would remain. "The galaxy thinks they're sending us home in defeat," she told her followers during a secret meeting on Europa Station. "They're wrong. We're not retreating. We're regrouping." As the deadline approached, the last human ships crossed into Sol system. The final evacuation shuttles carried tearful families away from worlds they had called home for generations. Children who had never seen Earth stared in wonder at the blue marble that was supposedly their real home. Admiral Lee watched the last transport dock at Luna Station and felt a mixture of relief and sadness. They had done the impossible. Every human civilian was safe, but the cost had been enormous. 67 worlds abandoned, hundreds of cities left empty, trillions of dollars in infrastructure and resources given up without a fight. The galaxy's response was swift and final. The quarantine barrier activated exactly 1 year after the Exile vote. A massive energy field surrounded the Sol system like an invisible cage. The barrier would disintegrate any ship that tried to pass through it. Humanity was trapped. Earth's leaders gathered in emergency session to decide what came next. President Seo Kyung-ho addressed the nation and the evacuated colonists in a speech broadcast across the solar system. "My fellow humans," he said, standing before the United Earth Assembly, "today we have been caged like dangerous animals. The galaxy fears us not because we are evil, but because we are different. We grow too fast. We learn too quickly. We refuse to accept that some things cannot be changed." He paused, letting his words sink in. "They expect us to accept defeat. They expect us to turn inward and forget about the stars. They are wrong. Humans have never accepted defeat, and we will not start now." The president outlined a new plan. Every human would serve their species in some way. Scientists would unlock the secrets hidden in the artifacts Dr. Kim had saved. Engineers would design new technologies. Soldiers would prepare for the day when humanity returned to claim its place among the stars. "We have been given time to think, to plan, to grow stronger." President Seo continued, "The galaxy believes they have solved the human problem. They have no idea that they have created something far more dangerous than they ever imagined." Deep in the asteroid belt, Yuna's hidden sensors detected the barrier activation. Her concealed bases came online, invisible to galactic detection but ready to support whatever came next. She smiled as she watched the energy field seal humanity inside their home system. "Let them think they've won," she whispered to her second-in-command. "We'll show them what happens when you corner a species that refuses to die." On Earth, Dr. Kim Ji-won began studying the artifacts her team had rescued. The first analysis revealed technology based on principles human science had never seen. Energy patterns that defied known physics, propulsion systems that could bend space itself. As the first year of exile ended, humanity settled into their cage. But they were not settling in to wait. They were settling in to plan, to build, and to prepare for a return that would shake the galaxy to its core. The exile had begun. But so had humanity's transformation into something the galaxy had never faced before. 6 months after the failed invasion of Earth, Dr. Park Sora stood before the largest gathering of species in galactic history. Representatives from over 300 civilizations had come to the New Geneva Conference. Not just council members, but species that had been ignored or oppressed for millennia. The conference hall was built on a new space station orbiting Earth. Unlike the hierarchical design of Harmony Prime, this station was built as a circle. Every delegation had an equal place at the table. "Friends," Sora began using the universal translator, "we gather today not as masters and servants but as equals. Humanity could have chosen to rule the galaxy through force. Instead, we choose partnership." In the audience, she could see species that most council members had never heard of. The insect-like Chithari, who had been dismissed as pest creatures but possessed incredible biological engineering skills. The energy-based Luminari, ignored because they didn't have physical bodies. The mechanical forgelings who built themselves and were considered not truly alive. These species had become humanity's first allies after the Exodus. While the Council had focused on ancient established civilizations, humans had reached out to the overlooked and undervalued. They had found incredible diversity and untapped potential. Ambassador Choi Mi-young, now Earth's Minister of Galactic Relations, watched the proceedings with satisfaction. The old council leadership was present, but they sat in the same chairs as everyone else. Hegemon Zask looked smaller somehow, his crystal body dim and cracked from months of poor nutrition. "The old system failed," Choi announced, "because it was built on the belief that age equals wisdom, that established power should never be questioned. We propose something different, a voluntary federation based on mutual respect and shared benefit." The Kiraxian delegate, General Cass Ara, raised her hand. She had replaced the disgraced General Vorthak after the failed invasion. "What guarantee do we have that humans won't simply become the new oppressors?" It was Commander Lee Dongwu who answered. He had returned from exploring the galaxy's edge with incredible discoveries. "Because we've seen what happens when any species tries to dominate the others. The galaxy stagnates. The ancient station we found contained records of our ancestors' civilization. They made the same mistake the Council made. They believed their success made them superior to everyone else." Lee activated a holographic display showing the ruins of massive cities on dead worlds. "This is what happened to the first human galactic empire. They became arrogant, stopped listening to other species, and eventually faced a rebellion that destroyed everything. We won't repeat that mistake." Dr. Sora took over the presentation. "The genetic research we've conducted shows something fascinating. Every species in this galaxy has unique advantages. The Chithari can engineer biological solutions we've never imagined. The Vorthak can store information in crystal matrices that last for millions of years. The Nalari can process atmospheric data in ways that surpass our best computers." She gestured around the room. "Human success came not from being superior, but from learning from others. We adapted Vorthak crystal technology to build better computers. We used Nalari atmospheric knowledge to improve our terraforming. We incorporated Chithari biological engineering into our medical systems." "But you hid your true capabilities," accused the Nalari delegate. "You pretended to be primitive while secretly developing advanced weapons." Admiral Kim Tae-ho stood to respond. "We defended ourselves. For 2 centuries we shared our real technology with the Council, our best computers, our most advanced medical equipment, our most efficient engines. And what happened? You took credit for our innovations and called us primitive." Kim's voice was calm but firm. "We learned to hold back our newest developments because the Council would steal them and then deny we created them. The advanced technology in Council space, 80% of it was designed by humans." The admission caused a stir in the audience. Many species had suspected this, but hearing it confirmed was still shocking. "So what do you propose?" asked President Nixara of the Elkari Federation. "A new model," Choi explained. "The Federation of Free Worlds. No single species in charge. No hierarchy based on age or size. Every member contributes what they can and receives what they need." "How would decisions be made?" asked a small, furry delegate from the Brintok Consortium. "By consensus when possible, by majority vote when necessary," Sora replied. "But with protections for minority opinions, and most importantly, any member can leave at any time. This is voluntary association, not forced membership." The Chithari delegate buzzed excitedly. "What about species the old council called primitive? We were never allowed to join. You're here now, Lee said with a smile. In fact, we hope the smaller and newer species will help us avoid the mistakes that led to stagnation. Fresh perspectives and new ideas are exactly what the galaxy needs. Over the following days, the conference worked out the details of the new system. The Federation would have no central capital. Leadership would rotate between member worlds. There would be no forced taxation. Members would contribute resources voluntarily based on their ability and needs. Most importantly, there would be no restrictions on technological development or sharing. The old council had limited certain technologies to prevent dangerous species from becoming too advanced. The Federation would encourage innovation and freely share new discoveries. The vote was held on the final day. Species after species chose to join the Federation. Even many former council members, tired of the old system's failures, voted to participate. The final tally was overwhelming. 287 species voted to join. Only 31 chose to remain independent. Hegemon Zask was among those who voted to join. His proud Vorthak hegemony was collapsing without human technology and trade. He had little choice but to accept the new reality. We welcome all who wish to build a better galaxy, Sora said as the conference concluded, but we understand that change is difficult. The Federation will help even non-members with humanitarian crises and natural disasters. We believe in leading by example, not by force. As the delegates departed, many were already making plans for cooperation that would have been impossible under the old system. The Luminary offered to share their energy manipulation techniques with any species interested in clean power. The Forgelings proposed joint research projects on self-repairing materials. The Chithari wanted to establish biological research stations on every member world. 3 years later, Commander Li Dongwu patrolled the trade routes that now crisscrossed the galaxy in patterns the old council had never imagined. Commerce flowed freely between species that had barely known each other existed. Technology spread rapidly as species competed to contribute innovations rather than hoarding secrets. His ship passed a joint research station where Vorthak scientists worked alongside human engineers and Chithari biologists. They were developing new terraforming techniques that combined crystal matrices, biological adaptation, and human engineering. The project would create habitable worlds in half the time the old methods required. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving a distress call from the edge of known space. What's the situation? Unknown species, sir. Their ship is damaged and they're requesting assistance. Lee smiled. Set course to help them, and send a message to the Federation Council. We might have found our 288th member species. Dr. Park Sora was now the Federation's first elected Director General, serving a 3-year term before leadership rotated to another world. She spent her days coordinating relief efforts, mediating disputes, and facilitating scientific cooperation. It was challenging work, but deeply satisfying. Her latest project was establishing schools throughout Federation space where children of all species could learn together. The first graduating class would include young humans, Vorthak, Nilari, Chithari, and dozens of other species. They would grow up thinking of diversity as normal and cooperation as natural. In her office overlooking Earth's rebuilt cities, Sora often reflected on how much had changed. The galaxy that had once scorned humanity now looked to human leadership. But it was a different kind of leadership, one based on service rather than dominance. The old Galactic Council had tried to maintain order through rigid hierarchy and fear. The Federation maintained peace through mutual benefit and respect. It wasn't perfect. Disputes still arose and some species remained outside the system. But it was better. Much better. Ambassador Choi Mi-young, now in her 70s, served as Federation ambassador to the independent worlds. She worked with species that chose to remain outside the Federation, building relationships and offering assistance without demanding membership. Even the proud Caraxian Empire had eventually joined, though it took them 5 years to swallow their pride. General Kasara now served as the Federation's defense coordinator, organizing mutual protection agreements between member worlds. The galaxy had not become a utopia. There were still conflicts, still problems to solve, still species that preferred isolation or aggression. But the trend was clear. Cooperation succeeded where domination had failed.